7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode number 56 of CBD Talk Podcast. Today, we have with us Joshua Laterman, who is the CEO and founder of the National Association of Cannabis Businesses. And I am really excited to have him because we've talked a lot about testing. We've talked a lot about marketing practices with respect to children and also lowering the bar when it comes to hot box videos and ridiculous things like that. So we have an organization now who is trying to remedy this and create the standards that the industry needs. So first of all, we're just going to get Joshua to tell us a little bit about himself, introduce himself, and let us know what brought him to the industry. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Dawn, it's great to be on your show. I'm Succeeding Good Company. I know you wrapped with the clinic on your last podcast. They're a terrific license holder, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a dad, 49, with 3 kids that are awesome. I'm a pediatric leukemia survivor. I'm a professional financial services advisor that has served families and public banks. And I have a pretty in-depth knowledge of dealing with the federal government and hyper-regulation generally from my time working in the financial and banking industry. And look, I approach the U.S. cannabis industry as an opportunity that could benefit so many parties. There's, such growth and opportunity for the states and for new businesses and for the tax revenues and new jobs that'll be created, and of course for the potential for medical advances as well. And as a former cancer patient, I'm very devoted. It's a cause bigger than myself to try to ensure that if there are opportunities for cannabis to help cancer patients with pain or even as a cancer killer, we'd like to help make that happen as soon as possible. And we'd like to, at the NACB, generally help grow U.S. cannabis, whether you're a license holder or an ancillary, or whether we can even help you as an investor or a state regulator. We believe there's a clear path, and the path begins with doing a bit more.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I've spoken with a few people in your organization, and it just, what I like a lot about the NACB is that it is so organized, it is so comprehensive, and things are not approached in a haphazard way. There's goals, you move forward, and then when you finish one thing, you move on to the next step and the next step. And I think in this industry, we find a lot of people trying to do 20 things at once, and you know what happens when you do that. So
Sure thing.
So I love the framework you have there. That there are a lot of things that I want to touch on, and I know we're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to take as much of your time as possible. So how about we start out with just go right into an example that has just come up recently of why national standards are important, and creating them yourself, as an industry is important.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, you and I have both been reading the news. I think that there was news 2 weeks ago when the FDA began its investigation of the e-cigarette industry, generally for concerns that it was flaunting the Joe Camel rules, which I loosely interpret as if you're going to sell an e-cigarette or you're going to sell a cigarette, or if you're going to be in the cannabis business, you need to make sure that you take steps that are not going to increase the likelihood that kids find it to be terrific and get to buy the e-cigarette or the cannabis. And clearly what's happened in the United States is that a lot of teenagers and younger kids were getting their hands on the e-cigarettes. And, this Juul company is, I think, really a terrific company, but they have some issues along with their industry to resolve. And I think it begins with the nomenclature You'll find if you go into any e-cigarette vapor store, the opportunity to buy luscious cherry and yummy lemon and cotton candy flavored nicotine potions. And I think the industry I think they found out pretty much the hard way that the FDA doesn't like that, and that the industry's okay, but they got to market in a way that is not likely to result in kids getting their hands on the e-cigarettes. And then yesterday came the news that sports gambling is soon going to be legal across the United States. A huge sweeping reversal. No longer you have to go to Vegas. Why is that relevant to U.S. cannabis? Because even Orrin Hatch, and he's quite an established member in D.C., said, we do not want to leave sports gambling to a patchwork of state regulations. And the federal government, now that it is becoming legal to gamble, wants to ensure that it's done properly and there's not a race to the regulatory bottom such that some states are easier, some states are more trustworthy, or what have you. And to us at the NACB, Dawn, this is a warning. This is a shot across the bow for U.S. cannabis. Whether you look at the e-cigarette example or the sports gambling example, the federal government is calling out and saying, your industry is not taking care of itself in a responsible manner, and therefore we, the federal government, are going to have to come in and help sort this out, likely using very burdensome new forms of regulation that'll be disruptive to your business. And my message to U.S. cannabis since inception has been, Dawn, look, we have a huge opportunity here, but there are grave federal concerns, and there are a lot of very wild and zany players in U.S. cannabis. If we want to control our future, if we want to deliver on the promise of U.S. cannabis, a responsible group of license holders needs to join us and needs to recognize the need to be state compliant, of course, but to do more, and to do more like, what we've done with our first packaging and labeling standard, which in all likelihood could have addressed the issues facing the e-cigarettes today.
Exactly. We need to raise that bar higher so that, we're quote unquote legitimate in certain states, but to get to the point where we are where we're showing the strength of the industry and the potential for the industry, you have to have higher standards, and you have to be an example for even the ancillary businesses like you're talking about, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because I think your Blue Ribbon affiliate system is really important here. But if you want investors to invest millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, you need to show them that you're serious, and you need to show them that you have the industry, the best interest of the industry, not just your company, at heart. And I do see that in some cases, but not in enough cases.
Sure. The best solution is one that will elevate the industry as a whole. It will uplift the license holders, the affiliates, the states, the recipients of the medicine. If we get it right, it's a win across the board. And, then we can probably address areas even like social justice. Mm-hmm. But, Dawn, you brought up the importance of standards. And I would just say, just to give it a little kind of a summary, I think the importance of standards is that we've heard from sessions that state law is not enough. And intuitively, it makes sense that the states are building laws that are state-driven. But as this industry grows, and perhaps there's been $9 billion of sales legally in the last 12 months, and that will jump to 12 or 15 soon, I'm sure. As that revenue grows, there are naturally going to be more federal interests that arise.
Yeah.
And as long as it's federally illegal, it's on us to try to anticipate how we can address those federal issues. And the NACB provides a rulemaking path to work with our members and with our former federal regulators to help craft these rules. And the opportunity is, if we can get this right, then hopefully the FDA won't crash down our doors, or hopefully Orrin Hatch won't be calling for sweeping federal regulation of our industry, because we'll have done it already. And we have that chance now, Dawn.
And I think one of the things that is huge, and that would hopefully help with when it comes to the FDA, is standards when it comes to testing. And we're a big proponent of testing at CBD Talk Podcast, because we've seen the reports a couple years ago from the FDA where they tested different products and showed the amount of CBD in a product on the label and the actual amount in the testing. Testing is huge, and I'm on the CBD side, on the full spectrum THC side. It's even more important. Pesticides, things like that, the biologics, it's huge. You need to know what you're taking into your body, especially if you're sick. So
yes.
What does the NACB say about the testing side of it?
Well, I think that you've identified something that is critical to the importance and success of our industry, in that I'd like to think when a consumer goes into a dispensary to purchase cannabis or CBD products, that they can feel comfortable that whatever is on the shelf is not going to hurt them, and it's labeled properly, indicating its strength and impurities. And I think that we've got a bit of a ways to go on this, because really not all of the cannabis gets to labs which can effectively do this, and perhaps not all the testing is done according to uniform and high standards. The addressing of the lab standards will be our third rulemaking effort, and we're going to begin working on that quite shortly over the course of the summer at the NACB. I'll have to come back on the podcast to give you more details on it, because we're just beginning the work and it is quite complicated. But the goal is clear, right? The goal is clear, is that a consumer deserves to be safe and protected, and we have to let them know with accuracy what it is they're buying.
Perfect. Awesome. So that's going to be your third one. Tell me, again, what are the first two that you've done? I know one of them was the National Standards for Advertising and Marketing.
Sure, that's right. The first one was advertising and marketing. We've done packaging and labeling, which we announced in February. And we feel that the advertising, the packaging, and the labeling, they all really go hand in hand, because our members want to be shown as the best of the best, industry leaders, thought leaders. And while I respect everybody's right to make a dollar, if I'm going to put my neck out and my company to go protect and lead, I want to work with the long-term players. I want to work with people who believe strongly that it's not right to market or advertise to kids, and also believe that the packaging needs to be appropriate, even if it's a bit more expensive, so that it's not easy to open or access if you're a child. To me and to our members, this is 100% clear. And if this message resonates with any of your podcast listeners or viewers, whether you're a license holder or an affiliate business, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Can you tell me, this I found very reassuring. You don't just write a check and become a member of the NACB.
That's right.
Can you tell me about a little bit about the credentialing process?
Sure thing. So just by way of background, I've been a general counsel, a lawyer, a risk advisor my whole life. And when I looked out over cannabis, I saw a couple of truths, I think. Number one, there's a mix of outstanding players and players who are most interested in making as much money as they can this week, this month, and are not really planning so far into the future. And for that latter group, they're short-term players. I wish them the best. But if you're in the smaller group and you want to grow over the course of time, if your goal is to hand your business over to your family or to monetize in the future, you have to realize that there are risks you're facing every day that could create total loss for you. Generally speaking, when a license holder or a cannabis person is accused of doing something wrong, no one comes to protect them. You're by yourself. And so the first step that I think is important for the industry is for the players who do things the right way to be able to show in an auditable manner that they are doing things the right way. And that's the cornerstone of our self-regulatory organization, which is to confirm that our members are state compliant every day, are ready to build additional national standards which go above the state law in some cases, and to subscribe to those standards. And third, Dawn, we know it's very important to make sure that if you have a bank account, you are a good citizen. You are not a money launderer. You're not using access to our capital markets to do naughty things. And so if you're a member in our SRO, your business practices will ensure that you're state compliant, you're building national standards, and if you have a bank account, that it meets enhanced due diligence levels that the banks require. And if you meet all three of those, we are going to deliver revolutionary software in the new year, which every day will confirm your compliance across those three proofs.
That
and
is
so,
beautiful.
Right?
I was in lending for 25 years, and I started out as an auditor back in the 80s in lending, FHA audits, VA audits, and you know, I love a paper trail.
That's right. And it needs to be auditable, and we're even going to be blockchaining it because we also understand that some people who receive data about cannabis businesses instantly receive it with some skepticism. Oh, it's the cannabis people. It's probably fudged. It's not going to be right. But the new technology of blockchain and its progeny ensure an immutable record. So our goal is to help our members build a better cannabis and then be able to show in an auditable way that they comply with that better cannabis world. And it's this ledger of record. Every day when you're a good actor, you get a check for that. We think that'll be very valuable and something that we can show to a state government or a federal government, or one of our members could show to someone who is criticizing the business. Look, I know maybe you don't like cannabis, but I can show you I paid all my taxes. I've created a whole bunch of jobs. I'm doing something that is good for my neighborhood and for society, and I'm paying my dollars into the world.
Exactly.
And if you show that proof, I think maybe that can get you a little further, but it only gets you so far because, as we know, U.S. cannabis is still pretty wild and zany. It's hard to know who to trust at any particular moment. And so while our SRO helps enable us to create a membership, a self-regulated membership of the best license holders in the country, we got questions from all of the businesses that are serving licensed cannabis businesses, the affiliate or ancillary cannabis businesses. And they said, what about letting us participate in the NACB? Mm-hmm. And our members said to us, hey, it'd be really valuable if you could credential ancillary businesses because we often don't get what we bargain for. And it's very hard sometimes to distinguish who's a good nutrients person or lighting person or hydro person mm-hmm. or accountant or lawyer. Mm-hmm. And, we came up with a service for that you mentioned earlier that, we're happy to introduce to the affiliate market.
The Blue Ribbon affiliate.
You got it. It's the Blue Ribbon affiliate program. And what we do there is if you are a business that is already serving cannabis, but you're not a license holder, or you're a business that is serving the tier 1 regular universe in the United States and would like to be exposed and distinguished and gain access to U.S. cannabis, you don't even have to have started doing anything. We can credential you, right? So if you're a hydroponics or nutrients or lighting or law firm or accountant, and you want access and you want to show that you're a distinguished business, you ask us to credential you. Nobody's doing that, right? That goes to your question earlier of there are tons of clubs where if you pay your money, you get to be part of the club, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. Our business proposition is slightly different. We only want to participate with people who are doing things the right way, mm-hmm. and you cannot become a member and you cannot become a Blue Ribbon affiliate if you have egregious things in your past that we dig up. So, but let me make that more specific, right? There are many businesses that serve cannabis that go through a string of bankruptcies or have huge liens against them. those signs are indicative of a business that you don't want to buy from, right? And if you were able to dig up with the very deep research that we do, and we do 28-point checking on the blue ribbons, then we would help you identify, well, this business that we're giving the blue ribbon to, they don't have a string of bankruptcies. They aren't named in any criminal complaints. They don't have any nasty felonies. The owners and the operators appear, for all the work we can do, to be honest and good practitioners of business. And to get that grade in cannabis is something that should put you ahead in the long run and enable you to pick the best people to contract with and do business with, Don.
Definitely. You know, we are talking about people's livelihood when it comes to these businesses, and you also do provide, NACB provides training as well.
That's right. You know, going out into the industry, it's easy to see how the type of advisors that are perhaps not so expert have expanded in the industry. And you can kind of go back maybe to the early days in Colorado. You are in a position, right place, right time. Maybe you're a ski instructor. You open up a dispensary. You start to do some real business. Suddenly you're making a couple $1 million, and you need a lawyer and an accountant. But the only lawyer you've ever had was when you got the DUI, right? So, right? And I hear this again and again. And this is with all respect to DUI lawyers, right? But the DUI lawyer, he knows the cannabis owners. They get together, and then the DUI lawyer starts to do contracting. And suddenly you have state issues, interlinks with federal issues, accounting and tax stuff that is quite problematic. And you really need a more advanced advisor who understands the whole market to guide you. And sadly, I'd say the market has a disproportionate number of people volunteering to be advisors, but only a small portion that are truly experts at being business advisors. Mm-hmm. So at the NACB, at the very least, we'd like to help give you some guidance to be going in the right direction. And of course, if you really needed more additional help, we'd be happy to provide consulting. But there are lots of blocking and tackling issues, even the general consideration of whether to get into cannabis or not. You know, I think it's the most exciting business I've been in. I love each day. I love working for a higher purpose beyond myself and my family, which are quite important, and my team. You know, I do think we have a higher purpose, but the industry needs people who are giving honest, forward-looking advice. Like, once you invest in cannabis and you have cannabis money, you are always going to have to be careful that you don't get kicked out of your bank. Yeah. That, you know, your records are clear. Once you get into it, you know, you got to be ready for it. And so, yes.
To lose. You have a lot
That's right.
to lose.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not a cheap industry to break into if you're going to do it right, and you don't want to risk losing all the assets that you put into it. So
that's right.
Yeah. One angry prosecutor could really ruin your day.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, I was just thinking, you know, back, I understand that a lot of your listeners are coming into the podcast to talk about CBD. Mm-hmm. And I should mention that I believe that the blue ribbon credentialing would be something that would be terrific to see related to anyone who is part of the procuring, processing, and delivery of your CBD product. And that, you know, certainly CBD holds a lot of promise. I have heard there are various qualities of CBD. There are sometimes occasions where CBD is mismarketed or is not as potent or pure as listed. Mm-hmm. I would be very careful. So, you know, I think it would be a terrific opportunity to market businesses which are in CBD and doing it the right way. You know, again, if we could help you with our blue ribbon, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, because, you know, it's the cannabis side of it is very clearly regulated in a lot of instances, and there's lots of rules and regulations not on the CBD side, and so it can be very scary for people when they're going out to purchase CBD for their loved one for whatever purposes, and you really don't know what you're getting unless you're familiar with the testing or you've already had experience with the people you're buying from. It can be really scary, and I think national standards from within the industry is a wonderful way to protect the consumer and not leave it to the government, because guys, we've already seen what the government's done, and it's not good. I mean, do we really want to trust someone that is just listening to lobbyists that are throwing buckets and buckets of money at them just to say, hey, just say what we want you to say? With the big pharma money, it's been causing problems for the cannabis industry for quite a while, and I don't think that they're going to just step aside and say, oh, okay, so we need to be able to regulate ourselves and not leave the government to create these regulations that'll be pretty much spoon-fed to them by big pharma lobbyists.
Well, Dawn, the apocalyptic big pharma, I don't even know exactly how that'll go down, but I'm in total agreement with you in the notion that if cannabis does not show that it has a consistently responsible portion of license holders, then the federal government will act. You can look at the FDA action on the e-cigarettes. You can look at the concerns over sports gambling. The federal government will act, and I'd say it's a guarantee that whatever action will be burdensome and highly disruptive for cannabis businesses. So there's really, I don't want to be a fearmonger, but I'm trying to be a practical advisor, a pragmatic advisor to you out there. If you're a license holder, we need to organize quickly. We need to organize around strong standards. And the opportunity is that we get to regulate ourselves in a system that works. And the cost of doing nothing will be revealed in the future. But if you look at the recent events, I think you can see that it will not be pleasant if we don't get organized soon.
Yeah. Now, just out of curiosity, and I don't mean this as a out of the blue thing, but do you have examples of other industries doing what you're doing that have been successful?
Sure. Let me give you currently the biggest self-regulatory organization we know is called FINRA, FINRA. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's listening in, if you're familiar with the financial services industry, you know that anyone who buys or sells you stock or gives you asset management advice or in some way is helping guide the investment or management of your money, they're all likely to be registered, licensed regularly, and under surveillance by FINRA, because the biggest money show is Wall Street, and the government wants to make sure that, and it can lead to a lot of jokes, but the government is trying to make sure that investors are protected, and that people who are dealing with them are certainly not criminals, are certainly not doing insider trading, are certainly not acting without their customer or investors' best interests at heart. And so everybody on Wall Street who does financial services like this is licensed, they're fingerprinted, the organization makes sure that they're not insider traders. And so far, that's enabled Wall Street members to govern Wall Street operators. So that's the largest one, and it worked quite successfully. But maybe one that's more accessible is the Motion Picture Association of America. Oh. And so, this goes back way before us. But, some long time ago, somebody kissed someone else on the screen and the government went crazy. Oh my God, right? We're going to corrupt our country. The government needs to regulate the movies. And the movie guys were smart and they acted swiftly. And thus was born the Motion Picture Association of America, which is very well structured. You have PG, PG-13, R, adult stuff, and it's all segmented. The Motion Picture Association showed it could handle itself, and you don't see any federal government regulation around the movies. Maybe they can help them make better movies, but they certainly have helped, right, provide a cure. So, that's a good example. I think that is a really relevant, easy example. Another one is the National Realtors Association. Wherever you have someone who is in a position that needs to be trusted, that if they are not a trustworthy person, they're really going to be able to jeopardize the public safety and welfare, that calls out for some type of regulation. And if the federal government's not already doing it, and you have a business that's doing well like cannabis, to me, it screams, get self-regulated now.
It truly does. And those are huge organizations, and they're regulating themselves.
That's right.
Cannabis is, I mean, it's still a baby industry, but getting just the growth, especially now with recreational in California. Holy cow!
Right.
And whenever you see money, you're getting a lot of attention, and so
that's right.
And that the government is got several eyes on the cannabis industry. So, all right. So, if there was anything that you wanted just anybody to, like the whole world to know about either cannabis or the cannabis industry, get on your soapbox and let's hear it.
Okay. First thing I would say is before you enter the cannabis industry, you need to do a lot of research. I just find too many people who have put money in and find themselves losing the money or disappointed or unable to keep up with the costs, and they thought it was just going to be so easy. Cannabis ain't easy. So my first message would be, before you jump in, do some research. It's not that easy. Then, if you've already jumped in and we're trying to move forward, I'd say, if you're an expert and you're a thought leader and you believe this is an industry which can create value for our country and rewards for your family, we need to get organized. And we need to get organized around real principles. And we need to be able to show that there is a group of us in the United States that is prepared to do more. And I strongly believe that if we can get some real members behind us, we will deliver a path to our members that will show that they are the best of the best. And when you have that type of proof, I think that you will be first in line to get privileges. So maybe one day our members will get the first banking operations or banking accounts that will be real financial services. Maybe our members will be the first to get real capital from terrific institutions or advice from real media or logistics companies. But to me, the golden rule is that compliance is a business advantage. And to proceed successfully, you need a terrific ledger of record. And we'd love to do that with you and to take your advice as we move along. And if you'd like more information, please do see us, NACB.com and Facebook and LinkedIn. We're there for you.
Yay! Well, I'm excited to hear what the outcome is of your summer project now with the testing, and also to find out about a path for CBD producers and suppliers to be able to get into that Blue Ribbon affiliate program. I think it's just going to really help to strengthen the industry as a whole. And thank you so much for your time. And shout out to Howard. Hey, Howard, who worked really hard with me and in scheduling and all of that. And I just really hope that we don't get to the point where the industry is suddenly swarmed down upon by the government saying you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and that we do have that strong self-regulatory framework in place so that we can go the way of the realtors and such. So thank you for everything you're doing, and we'll catch up with you in the future.
Hey, thanks, Dawn. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
All right, everyone. See you next time. Remember, stay happy and stay healthy.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.